Welcome back, troglodytes, to your daily dose of guitar information, the Trogly's Guitar Show. About a year ago, we took a look at some interesting Gibson Archtop prototypes that rather surprised me when I saw them show up. As more information on these interesting prototypes came available, instead of being 2019s, it's actually believed that these were made in the early 2010s. But something showed up in Japan on Reverb that's very similar to these guitars, but something even cooler. Ladies and gentlemen, I give you the Gibson Custom Shop L-5 non-cutaway carved shark. Alright, let's go ahead and take a look at this thing. At first, it's kind of boring. I don't really like non-cutaway models, but stay with me here. Even if you're not really into Archtop guitars, this has a lot of interesting features to it. So we've got kind of a cherry sunburst color going on, but not like too cherry. It almost has a slight honeyburst vibe to it down here, but yet a little bit more orange on the sides. But you'll notice the distinctive lack of an F-hole. If we look at an old non-cutaway L5, this is what it would have looked like. You get the block inlays, the fancy little whoopity-whoop down here, bound F-holes that are just in your face and there, floating bridge, all of this good stuff. But this has none of that. I mean, look at that dinky little pickguard. Something about that just looks so stylistically pleasing but strange at the same time. It almost has the shape of a small fish, like this minnow here, but they're calling it the shark. And heck, this thing's not even bound, no whoopity-whoop. They've just got a little mini humbucker there, which probably is a little bit more functional than having a bunch of binding, being able to plug it in. But we still have that floating bridge, but take a look at this tailpiece. Normally they have these big gaudy things. I'm not a huge fan of those, but you know, they have their place in history. Very jazzy looking. But this one, it's actually the headstock of a Gibson. They've got the whole open book vibe, which I think really complements this guitar. I mean, it's rather small, it's not quite as gaudy, it kind of matches what they did with their pickguard here. And we even get a little armrest. But these F-holes, when I first saw this thing, I was curious, did they just make the wood like ridiculously thin right there and somehow the sound can still get out? Well, we can't really answer that with just this photo. Let's move on to our next one. Here's where we see, okay, they messed with our headstock a little bit. We'll take a look at that later, but nothing really too revealed. But this angle is where things start to get interesting. Now that we've got a new way to view this thing, we can see crazily flame sides. That looks pretty nice. And it appears these are also made out of wood. That's kind of a nice fancy touch. But what is this? What are these little holes over here? They're little sound holes, kind of like on that other prototype that I was loving, because that was such a freaky guitar and it just had that unique sound hole on the side that I had not seen Gibson do before. But then it hit me. It's a slotted sound hole on the front. How cool is that? I don't think I've ever seen Gibson do that. I'm sure there's some other manufacturer that has done it, and Gibson's kind of taken some influence from their design, but that's so fascinating to me. And it completely makes sense why they called this one the shark. These are like gill slits. And maybe these are just larger gills. I'm not quite sure what they're doing with those. But for some reason, holes in the side of a guitar, it intrigues me because you don't see it too often. And that side has super flamage going on. But you'll notice, no binding? That's kind of strange. Usually they use the binding to kind of help hide the seam. Doesn't look like the treble side has any of those holes, but it appears to have like the faux binding look because you still have the maple or spruce top, whatever they used on this thing. Probably spruce. I'd be curious to hear this thing acoustically, but it looks like your output jack is located right here along the edge. Kind of strange that you don't have any type of tone control or volume control, especially when it's more of a jazzy guitar, but who knows, maybe they're actually hiding under there and we just can't see it. Now moving on to the headstock. Well, it does have the open book headstock, but they just kind of swooshed it and made it a lot larger down here. Can't say I'm a big fan of that, but I love it when they bring back that old vintage style, the Gibson. And those are some really fancy tuners. They look like vintage amber that's been fossilized or something. But you'll notice with this design, it's got a little bit better of a straight string pull going on. It's not 100% perfect, but it looks better than the standard Les Paul anyways. Maybe it's just the angle. Then moving on to the back. This reminds me of what Taylor uses on their higher end acoustic guitars. But you've got a large wing here and there, and then it looks like just a main piece of maple. And that also has that sunburst finish with a giant volute, as these really fancy old Archtops tend to have. Kind of sad that we don't have any type of a stinger on this one, but they don't quite look the same when there's a volute. And once again, no binding on the fretboard, but you've got these, I guess they were trying to go for like a shark dorsal fin coming at you straight on. That's the best I could think of. And then the 12th fret actually has like a little moon or something. I don't know. But our last pertinent picture here, it shows us it is a real Gibson Crimson division guitar. So Crimson is like above the custom shop. It's where they do really highly experimental things, super high-end ornate art guitars. I mean, if you've got a Crimson guitar, you've got something truly special. But on top of the Crimson COA, they also have a COA just for the Shark model. So they called it Shark number 1. And I just love animal-themed guitars within the Gibson realm of things, mainly stemming from the ones that have like the little decals on the back. So I think it would have been nice if we could have had a little sharky guy down here, but nah, unfortunately not. So it's kind of a weird experimental Archtop. How much could it be? Well, it's $16,432.80, plus about $250 shipping. And it's for sale in Japan at Mickey Musical Instruments. It doesn't appear that they're open to offers, so it's not something I would be interested in paying that much for, but these Archtop guitars, they can definitely go for that much and way more. But let's see what else that they're saying. They're saying designed by Bruce Kunkel. Now, I could be wrong, but they might be talking Bruce Kunkel. I mean, he's the one that did all the custom shop carving, I think up until about 2018-ish. But he does his own stuff now under his own brand. So it looks like they're going off a 17-inch body design. And some of these bad Google translations are kind of funny, like the Rich Ride fretboard. Oh, yeah! No, they meant Rich Light. That's kind of a real shame, but I guess it is in that era where ebony was very scarce for Gibson, right at the very beginning. But hey, it doesn't look half bad on this example. Sometimes those look terrible. Oh, and they're saying the inlays are meant to be a shark's tooth. Oh, okay, I can kind of see that. That makes a little bit more sense than my dorsal fin thing, but it doesn't explain this unless it's like a blood droplet coming off of it. I feel like if they really wanted to go for that shark tooth thing, it would need to be wider at the base and then kind of get jaggedy. But then again, that wouldn't be very classy just to have a legitimate outline of a shark tooth. They're probably going for some stylistic design choices here. And okay, the volume and tone were completely excluded. So it's just direct from the output jack from there, so I hope you don't want to roll your tone off on that. And yes, hand-carved spruce top as they normally have with the flame maple back and sides. Well, what's that about? Why is it Rich Light fingerboard, and they've got it correct here but not up there, but then they do ebony for the bits? They must have made those before the ban and all that stuff. That's the only thing I could guess. Or they outsourced the production of those. The back on this one's pretty nice too. Completely flamed maple just like the sides and the neck itself. However, one small complaint that I do have is the neck appears to have been sprayed a little bit brighter than the body. Now sometimes that can happen if you have a maple neck and a mahogany body. That's why some of the old vintage deluxes don't quite match up. But this is maple and that's maple, so there's really no reason for that in my opinion. And it appears we do have a black heel cap on the back, or some sort of special thing. So they went for all the special attributes, but the lack of binding on this one, I don't know, it just kind of turns me off. I really like this design. I'm glad that they made it, but it is not something that really appeals to me. But it's so interesting and fascinating that I want to talk about it still. So it's kind of in the not rock or purchase category for me, but I still respect it and I think it's kind of a cool idea. So an interesting guitar nonetheless. Unfortunately, I do not have a playing sample of this particular guitar, but I did a little bit of research into those side holes, and apparently they're called sound ports, and they're put into the guitar to help you hear the guitar better as you play. Here's a demonstration. The only question left, would you rock the Shark or not? Leave your answer down in the comment section below. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and we will see you tomorrow on the next episode. Take care.